Hi, everyone. Happy Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. We're so excited to have you here with us. We acknowledge that we are on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone, who were the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. As the indigenous stewards of this land, and in accordance with their traditions, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as the caretakers of this place, as well as for all peoples who reside in their traditional territory. As guests, we recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland. We wish to pay our respects by acknowledging their ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush community, and by affirming their sovereign rights as First Peoples. The Asian Art Museum condemns racism, hate, and xenophobia in all its forms. We call for an end to anti-Black and anti-Asian violence and commit ourselves as partners and allies in fighting for social justice. We pledge to uplift the voices and experiences of marginalized communities and to confront prejudice and injustice through the power of art and education. There's still much more work to be done, and we will continue to make diversity, equity, access, and inclusion institutional priorities as we strive to make the museum truly a place for all. Thank you everyone for joining us. Today we will be listening to 3 stories, each told by a storyteller focusing on Asian American women and their journeys to the United States. Immigration to the United States has often been severely limited and difficult to achieve, sometimes due to policies put in place by the US government. It was especially hard for Asian women. In the early 1900s, the US and Japan created an informal agreement called the Gentleman's Agreement of 1907, which allowed the wives, children, and parents of Japanese men already here to immigrate to the US and territory of Hawaii. But this practice ended with the passage of the Immigration Act of 1924, which limited and prevented immigration from Asia and the Eastern Hemisphere to the United States. For those who were able to immigrate to the US, their process and journey can be quite different from each other. Some people came as refugees, fleeing their countries for safety and freedom. Some married a US military soldier and came for love, and some came to join a family member already here in the country. Many of these people were brave women who left their native lands, traveled to a new place with a different culture, language, religion, and new traditions, all wishing for a better life and place to call home. They were here to establish new roots in this strange new land. So first, I would like to welcome storyteller Alton Takiyama-Chung, who will share a story about picture brides. Hi, Alton, welcome.
Hi.
And the stage is yours.
From about 1908 to 1924, some women moved from their home countries to Hawaii to work on the sugar and pineapple plantations and marry men based upon an exchange of photographs. These arranged marriages were a common practice amongst the Japanese, Okinawan, Korean, and other Asians in Hawaii. These women were known as picture brides. Now, these brave women were willing to leave their families and all that was familiar to begin a new life in a new country. And they would take on all of these challenges with men whom they only saw in a photograph. Often they would meet for the first time at the immigration station where these brides arrived in Hawaii. Barbara Kawakami's award-winning book, Picture Bride Stories, is a collection of these poignant stories based upon first-hand interviews with 16 picture brides, and is the culmination of over 40 years of interviews. Now, my connection to these stories is personal. My grandmothers on both sides of my family were picture brides. Now, the go-between, the nakudo or baishakuen in Japanese, shuttled pictures of prospective grooms and brides between Hawaii and their home country. Once the match was agreed upon, the couple was married in a proxy ceremony, and the new bride went to go and live with her new in-laws for 6 months, while awaiting her passport and visa. During this trial period, the mother-in-law would scrutinize her daughter-in-law for any faults. Now, at the end of the 6 months, the husband paid for his wife's passage to Hawaii, and she would arrive after a 10-day voyage from Japan at the immigration station in Hawaii, anxiously waiting to meet her new husband. Sometimes an older version of the man in the photo came to claim his bride. And sometimes a stranger would show up, as a prospective groom would have had a younger, handsomer friend stand in for him for the photo. And sometimes a groom would not come to claim his bride, and she would be stuck in a strange country with little money and no way to get back home. But more often than not, the bride would meet the man in the photo, and they would have another marriage ceremony and begin their lives in the plantation camps of Hawaii. Now, Barbara has been a consultant and lecturer at the Japanese American National Museum in Los Angeles and the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. She was recognized as a living treasure of Hawaii in 2012, awarded the Hawaiian Historical Society's designation of Kahu Ikena, or Caretaker of Knowledge, in 2017, and received the Royal Order of the Rising Sun with silver rays from the Emperor of Japan for promoting Japan-U.S. friendship in 2019. At age 100, Barbara has just completed work on another book of stories about plantation life in Hawaii, and this is one of her stories. Human beings should cry when they cry. You laugh when you laugh. You suffer when you suffer. The daily attitude is important. If you kuyo, be fretful or mope one's life away, you will shorten your life. If we learn to overcome the hardships and maintain a happy self, a person will live a long life. That was Ushii Nakasone's philosophy of life. That's her, the second from the right in this family portrait. Ushii Shimobukuro was born on September 9th, 1897, the second to the last child in a family of one boy and 6 girls. My parents had a farm in a village of Misato in Okinawa. When I was 7 years old, my parents gave me away to my uncle and aunt who had no children. I was the only one given away, but I went back and forth to my old home and was close to my brother and sisters. I graduated the 6th grade. In those days, few girls could even finish the 4th grade because their parents needed their help on the farm or doing household work or cooking. My uncle was very nice to me, but my aunt, she liked the cat more. She always fed the cat good food first, and I got what was left. I come hagayui, angry, and I wish the cat no stay around. But my youngest granddaughter loves cats, and so now I like cat a little bit too, yeah. As I become makule, old, chiku soisho mo kawaii rashi. Even animals can become adorable. Even now, I think cats are cute though. Cute. When I graduated the 6th grade, there was road work going on in the village, so I began to work for the village. I tie a tenugui, a towel, around my head so hair no catch too much dust. We fill up big gallon-sized buckets full of dirt and carry them on our heads. We had 2 Naichi, Japanese from the main islands of Japan, as our bosses. They stood by and told us what to do. When the road work was finished for the day, we would work on the family farm raising sugarcane. We only got paid chibito, little bit for our work on the road, but we gave it all to our parents. One day when I was 18 years old, a couple came to talk marriage between their son, Matsukichi, and me. He worked on a sugar plantation in Hawaii. That's when I first saw my husband's picture. I thought, woohoo, handsome. So I say, okay, just like that. Even as a young girl, I always dreamed of going to Hawaii. When people come back Okinawa, I hear many good stories about island paradise where people go to make big money. They come show us pictures and I think, oh, how pretty Okinawan girl look, dressed in beautiful kimono and wear them just the way the Naichi girls wear them. So right away, I say yes to marry and go Hawaii. My mother was very worried because I give answer too fast. Ushii, are you sure you want to marry this man? He's 11 years older than you. If you go Hawaii and marry this man, you no can divorce. No matter how hard time you get, once you marry, no can get divorced. Her words stayed with me all my life. But I fell in love with my husband's picture. And I really want to go to this island paradise I dreamt so much about. Then Matsukichi's stepmother gets Spanish flu and die. So he hurry home to Okinawa. The first time I see him face to face, I thought, ooh, handsome, just like his picture. But his feet, kind of small. I get a little turned off. But I promised his parents, no can do anything. So I make up my mind and go ahead with the wedding. Oh, there was lots of celebrating. And then my husband had to leave for Hawaii. No, I cannot go Hawaii because with Matsukichi because father-in-law all alone. So I stayed to help him on farm. But he told me, go Hawaii, start family. After 3 months, I go Hawaii. I was 18 years old when I left Misato village in 1914. All my friends and family come to say goodbye. You take care. Be well. When you get Hawaii, be sure to write us right away so we no worry. My eyes get tears when I see them waving goodbye with tenagui in their hands. My mother tell me, be good girl. Be good girl. Save money so you can come home as soon as can. Our ship, the Shinyu Maru, some picture brides get seasick, but I lucky. I no get seasick. And I no feel lonely because get girls from my village. From the immigration place, my husband and I go train station and take train straight to Mokuleia on the north shore of the island of Oahu, near Wailua, this drab and lonely pineapple town. When I come, 1914, no job for women. So I stay home. Then one day, my husband come to say, at the WWII sugar plantation, give women work. You hear that women can even take their babies to work too. So we decide, move to WWII on the west side of Oahu, 1915. There were times when I used to wonder why I ever came to Hawaii. Oh, I think maybe any times about the picture I used to see back in Okinawa, how the Issei, first generation Japanese, worked so hard on the plantations. But it more bad than I think. Oh, I want to go back Okinawa. But my mother's words ring in my ear. Once you marry, you no can ever come back. I worked with my husband for 2 planting seasons, even though I pregnant. After first baby come, I stay home 1 year. But I still work, make extra money. I do laundry for 3 single men, make bento, lunch for them to take to work. In them days, nobody ever hear how not to get hapai, pregnant. We keep getting babies one after another. I have no problems while being hapai, so every day I go work until last minute. To mukaeru, give birth, midwife come, help. In those days, no more babysitter. So when baby was 1 year old, I take her to cane field with me. I make little tent of cloth to keep hot sun off baby. Make me feel really bad. But all mamas do that. Huh? I no can opa, carry baby and work. So I put baby on straw mat. And when baby cry, I go see if baby hungry or need changing. We make nutsu, diapers, from old cotton kimono. too much dust. Caneville, very dusty place. Really sad for baby. I don't can say anymore. Too much pain. I work 10 hours in hot sun. Keep one eye on baby. And then I fold tent and my things. I go home. I go home to make Johan dinner for husband. I let baby sleep on porch while I cook in kitchen. Husband come home and say, "You let baby sleep on porch. Yeah. What you gonna do? Bird come bite baby." He scold me like that. Yeah. Mother with baby, hard time. We work hard all day. Get up early, make asagohan breakfast, make bento lunch for both of us, work. Then we come home and I hurry to make fire for furo. For husband can soak in hot tub, relax. Meanwhile, I make Johan dinner, then clean up dishes, and then take care of baby. I prepare rice for the next day to make lunch for husband and self. And Papa, he tired, he go sleep. But Mama stay up all night when baby cry. Still, next morning, when baby cry, I get up, I go work. With Papa, do same kind of work. Yeah. Issei wahine, first generation Japanese women, all work hardo. Papa not happy, making so little money. So we moved to Kaneohe on the east side of Oahu and invest in some panapuro, pineapple land. We work harder, but by the time panapuro ready for market, price go down. Now can make money. Now we poor. No money to buy food. So Papa go from relative to friend to try to kariru, borrow money. One time I only had one bunch so mean, noodles to feed children. I only use half, make soup to stretch out meal until Papa can borrow some money. Sometimes I don't have kerosene. I bring empty ketchup bottle to Kareru, kerosene from neighbors to start fire, to light lamp at night. See, no electricity Kaneohe yet, yeah? Finally, we moved to Mo'ilili in Honolulu. This time, husband's guru friend give us money. We raise hogs, make little bit money. We give back money we kareru from friend. Even now, I not can forget his kindness. That man gone now, buried in Okinawa. So whenever I go back Okinawa, I offer senko, incense, and clap hands. Pray. Pray from the heart. Say thank you. See, in olden days, everybody helped each other. Huh? We're moving all over the place, had more children, nothing working out. Finally, Army lieutenant and his wife asked me to work as housemaid for them, Schofield Barracks. I say, I don't speak Haole. They say, no worry, they teach me. I say, I have to take my little girl to work too. They say, okay. I start working for them. But I don't understand what they say. I buy one tablet, one pen. I write down everything they say. Mrs. hold up a broom and say, broom. I write down burumu in Japanese, so I remember. Still more problems when I try cook. I cannot read English on cans. Lieutenant point out picture on can. Tell me what's inside. I write down in Japanese. That's how I learn English. I was living maid and had my own room, but my little girl no like stay with me. She lonely. She miss her brothers and sisters. So I stay by myself and work. Every night I think about my little girl. I cry and cry till my pillow all wet. My eldest daughter, Matsue, oh, she really suffered too. She only went to first half of 5th grade. I let her quit school to watch all the younger children. She do the cooking and laundry too. She never complain, not once. She no can go school with her friends. Oh, broke my heart to let her do that. Even now, I feel terrible pain in my heart when I think about my children. I stay as live-in maid until lieutenant. Go back mainland. Huh? The next place I worked was for captain. Huh? Again, I keep child with me. They say, okay. And while I worked for them, I was hapai with number 6 child, yeah? But by then I can speak a little bit English. Because I can keep baby with me, I work with them until last minute. Before I go home, boss asks me when I can come back. I say, 1 month, 1 month. They pay me 2 times what I can make working in the Panapuru field. I clean house, I cook, I wash clothes, I iron. I put baby in playpen, then do my work. The boss's mama live with them. And every time the baby cry, she give me the eye. Times like that, I suffer inside. Breaks my heart even now when I think about it. I work as maid for 20 years. Help Papa pay back money he borrowed to make money for family. Yeah? 1926, we moved to Wahiwa in central Oahu and raised pigs. Whole family help cut hono grass, add to slop from Schofield Barracks, tend to fire, cook the slop, feed the pigs, clean out the pig pens. Whoo, plenty work. Matsukichi suffered a stroke in 1953. Ushii cared for him with the help of one of her sons. Matsukichi passed away 10 years later, on June 17th, 1963, at age 77. It seems like a yume, a dream, such a long time ago. All we did was work, work, work. I cannot believe how I was strong enough to go through all of those hard times. My 10 children, all good children, always help, no grumble, work hard. I feel so arigatai, very grateful. Thanks to my children, I can now nagaike, enjoy this long life. All this suffering I had in my young days is nothing. Now, when I think back, I feel all that kuro, all the trouble, all the hardships we endured taught us a lot about daiji no kato, the important things of life. Now, I'm happy, free to do what I like. No more worry, just work in garden. Now, anshin, now I found peace of mind. Ushii died in her sleep at her home on November 19th, 1990, at age 93.
Thank you, Alton, for that wonderful emotional story. Thank you. Thank you. Now I would like to introduce storyteller Janet Liu, who will share her own immigration story titled On the Shoulders of My Parents. Janet, please take it away.
As Triana mentioned, the Immigration Act of 1924 banned all Asian immigration to America. But some 40 years before then, the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 banned all Chinese immigration to America. It was a racially targeting Chinese, and it was only repealed during World War II. when it was embarrassing to racially target the citizens of a war ally. The Exclusion Act was replaced by the quota law, which limited Chinese immigration to America. My family came to America under the quota law. This quota law was finally replaced by the Immigration Act of 1965, which removed racial barriers to come to America. I was born in Taiwan, a beautiful subtropical island off the coast of China. I spent my childhood there with my mother and my younger brother, surrounded by a large extended family of my grandmother, my uncles and aunts, my cousins, and lots of people I called uncles and aunts, but who weren't related by blood. My father was in America for graduate studies. My father was a brilliant scholar. He had come to America on a student visa in the 1950s with all expenses paid by the Taiwan government. He earned his PhD in nuclear physics in 3 years, and then he worked. He wanted to stay in America, and he wanted to bring his family to America. But that was nearly impossible because Chinese immigration to America was limited by a quota law, which limited the immigration to 105 Chinese per year. This was small relief from the earlier Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, which was racially targeted to Chinese and had prevented any Chinese immigration to America. My father worked for years with other Chinese American scientists to find a way to bring their families over. Then, after President John F. Kennedy was elected, their immigration lawyer advised them to appeal to Attorney General Robert Kennedy, who had a reputation for being sympathetic to family hardships. My father, whose English was excellent, wrote to Robert Kennedy. His letter was effective. President Kennedy signed a presidential executive order to allow the families of valuable Chinese American scientists to come to America and to wait for their quotas in America. My father had prepared my mother to be ready to come to America. As soon as he learned the president had signed the executive order, he telegrammed my mother to come. And that's how my family, in 1961, was the first to come through Honolulu on that executive order. The immigration officer in Honolulu had to phone Washington, D.C. to verify the copy of the executive order my mother handed him. My family came to America when I was in grade school to join my father in Madison, Wisconsin. When I came to America, I had no memory of my father. He had been out of our lives for 6 years. During that time, there were no visits, no phone calls. There were only these light blue aerograms, which were single sheets of letters that folded into envelopes that floated between my parents. My father turned out to be a kind and patient man. He helped us to adjust to living in America, to learn English, to adjust to the bitterly cold winters of Wisconsin. One day, my father and I were outside our house, soaking up the sun. I asked my father, "Why is the sky blue?" He looked at me and said, "That is a very good question." I don't remember his science answer, but my father's acknowledging me was carved in my memory and on my heart. 2 years after we came to America, my family moved to Norman, Oklahoma, because my father wanted to teach rather than do research. One afternoon, my father let me help him check his students' final exam grades on his grade sheet. Then I watched as he calculated his students' final grades. It looked straightforward enough until he paused at a student's name. He explained to me, giving a C grade to a graduate student major in physics is like giving him an F. The student cannot continue to major in physics. Oh, I nodded and looked at him. A month later, I was walking home from school when I saw an ambulance parked in front of our house with its strobe light flashing. Then it sped away with the sirens blaring. The ambulance took my father away. I never saw him again. He died of kidney failure. I was 12. My mother faced huge obstacles. She was in a foreign country, no family, no friends, with only basic English. She had no employable skills, and she had 2 young children to raise. She approached the University of Oklahoma, where my father had taught. They gave her a job in key punch, which was very generous because my mother had taken only 1 class in key punch. We lived on her clerical salary and my father's Social Security survivor's benefits. Then my mother received a deportation notice from the US immigration. My father had died, and we had lost our legal status to stay in America. My mother appealed to the university again. They were sympathetic and asked their alumnus, US Senator Mike Mulroney, to help. The senator introduced a bill in Congress to allow my family to become legal residents of America. Once the bill was introduced, we could not be deported. The bill did not come up for a vote and died when Congress recessed for the summer. The deportation letters resumed. That fall, both US senators from Oklahoma introduced a bill for my family. This time, the bill passed the Senate, but failed in the House. The deportation letters resumed. My mother was desperate and moved us to the Bay Area of California, hoping that her brother there could help. My family of 3 rode the Greyhound bus from Oklahoma to California with 4 suitcases. My mother carried 2 large suitcases, and my brother and I each carried smaller ones. At most stops, I rushed off the bus to get away from that stinky cigarette smoke. My uncle couldn't help us with immigration, but luckily, the personnel manager at the bank where my mother had found work was sympathetic to my family's immigration plight. He appealed to US Representative Charles Goopser. The congressman took our case. I once asked my mother, why can't we live in a house like other people instead of living in this apartment? My mother said, because we can be deported tomorrow. The threat of deportation hung over our lives. Even with that, my mother created a home rich with love. I remember the clam chowder my mother would bring home from her work's cafeteria. She would ask the cook for the leftovers because she knew I loved clam chowder. In early 1968, 4 years after my father's death, a US congressional bill to allow my mother, Mrs. Laura Huiwei Wong, and her 2 children, Janet Wong and Simon Wong, to become legal residents of America was passed in both the US Senate and the US House. My family became legal residents of America. I graduated from UC Berkeley when I was 20 with majors in math and computer science. I found work in the growing new field of computer programming, which paid very well. I bought a beautiful house with my mother, 4 bedrooms and 2 baths. I gave the master bedroom with its own bath to my mother. I took one of the other bedrooms and shared a bath with my brother. My brother then also graduated from college. Later, we both found partners, married, and started our families. We thrived. My family's journey to become Americans was filled with struggles. It took a president, a Congress, many sympathetic individuals, and my extraordinary parents to overcome the many obstacles America had put up to keep Asians out. My parents' courage and perseverance lifted me on their shoulders to reach their dream of a better future for their children. Sometimes I'm scared being in America as an Asian American woman. American culture doesn't have many positive images of Asian Americans. For me, I want so much for my daughter to be free from being treated as a foreigner in her own country. In 2011, I helped to pass a US congressional bill to apologize for the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. In 2020, as COVID-19 hit America, I read with alarm the increasing anti-Asian violence, from verbal insults to punchings to stabbings. Then the Atlanta murders. I learned a US congressional bill was being considered to condemn anti-Asian violence. I urged my Congress members to support the bill. The bill passed in both the US House and the US Senate. I am an American.
Thank you, Janet, for sharing your powerful story with us. We're honored to have you here today. Lastly, I would like to introduce Asian Art Museum storyteller Eleanor Clement Glass, who will be sharing a story about her mother, who was a war bride. Eleanor, if you can turn your video on. There we go. Some Zoom tech difficulties.
Oh, great.
Hi, Eleanor. Welcome to the stage, and you can take it away.
Thank you. After World War II, US servicemen, who were often called GIs, sometimes married while they were overseas in the countries where they were on assignment. With the passage of the War Brides Act of 1945, spouses and natural or adopted children of US military personnel were allowed to enter the United States as non-quota immigrants. So they were exempt from the existing quotas that had been established by that Immigration Act of 1924, which was based on the principle of racial exclusion. In contrast, the War Brides Act of 1945 was passed for three main reasons. One was the recognition of the man's right to have their wife and children with them. Two was the reward for military service. And third was for family reunification. From 1945 to 1965, an estimated 300,000 foreign war brides moved to the United States from all over the world. From Europe, Britain and Germany made up the largest portion of war brides. In fact, the US Army's Operation War Bride began in the British Isles in 1946. And I was interested to know that some war bride grooms were also allowed to emigrate with this act. In Asia, the Philippines and Japan served as the largest source of war brides. In the Philippines, many of the people who came over here after World War II under the War Brides Act had been raised under American colonial rule. And so these women knew some English and had developed a loyalty for the United States. Then during the war, the American soldiers were seen as liberators because they were helping the Filipino army to move the Japanese out of the country and to stop the Japanese war occupation. There were 51,747 war brides who came from the Philippines, and that included my mother. And this is her immigration story. My grandmother, Tecla Baldecaño Santiago, was a strong, resilient, tough Filipino woman. It wasn't easy to raise 4 children during that brutal war, World War II, when the Japanese invaded and occupied the Filipina Islands. But she survived, and she kept her 3 girls and her young son safe. After the war, she moved her family to Manila, the capital of the Philippines. She was determined to rebuild their lives and keep them safe. In 1946, she walked her 16-year-old daughter, Gloria, to Clark Military Base for her first job, and she held her hand. "Glory, Glory, sige na, hurry. You don't want to be late for the first day of your new job." Gloria's eyes shone bright with curiosity and excitement. "Mama, look!" She pointed to the big gray ship that was docked at the end of the pier. It dwarfed everything else. Mama, look. She pointed to the lines and lines of Negro soldiers in their camouflage and black boots marching along. In 1946, the U.S. Army was still segregated with white and Negro or colored troops in separate units. When they got to Bungalow 18, Mrs. Santiago said, "Glory, be good, work hard. I will come for you at the base entrance." Now, my father, at 23, had just completed his Army officer training in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and he came to the Philippines as a Negro officer, 2nd Lieutenant William Clement. My mother said, At first, the lieutenant was my mentor. And he told me to just call him Bill. Now, my mother, by her own admission, was the worst clerk typist ever. Her trash can overflowed with crumpled paper because she would snatch out paper and ball it up with every mistake she made on that black manual typewriter. But she had a sweet, friendly disposition and a delightful sense of humor that endeared her, along with her sweet spirit, to everyone in her office, including Second Lieutenant William Clement. One day, Second Lieutenant William Clement came in and he saw that she was visibly upset. "Glow, what's wrong?" That was his nickname for her, Glow. I think I'm going to be fired today. The captain asked me to go to a movie yesterday. I did not know how to say no to the captain, so I said yes. And then I gave him my wrong address. Bill laughed. And at that, he became her protector too. He patiently taught her how to type and file papers. He taught her English, and he introduced her to her first American cheeseburger and chocolate milkshake. At her insistence, he even taught her how to drive an army jeep. Sometimes Gloria would tell her mother that she had to work on a Saturday, so they had a little bit more time. They loved to walk in the base cemetery where there were lush tropical flowers and that smelled beautiful, and there were manicured green lawns, and they were less likely to run into colleagues. One day, Mrs. Santiago was playing mahjong with some of her friends, and she said, "You know, my Glory is getting to be such a good worker. You know, she is ready early every time we have to walk to the base. And sometimes she even works extra on Saturdays. I am so proud of her work ethic. This job has been very good for her." Indeed, Bill and Glow had fallen in love. One day, they were walking along the beach, and Bill stopped, pulled out a little blue velvet box from his pocket surreptitiously. "Glow, ini ibi kita." "Bill, I love you too. Your Tagalog is getting very good. You have been practicing." "Glow, what are you doing?" He knelt on the sand on one knee. "Glow, you know I love you more than my own life. And soon I'm going to be getting orders to leave the Philippines. I want you to come with me as my wife. Will you marry me?" "Oh, Bill, you know I love you with all my heart, but I cannot marry you." He stood up. "Why not?" "Because I have two elder sisters, Aning and Evs. Oh, my mother would be so uncomfortable if I was to marry before they do." "Oh, I'm sure they would understand." "Well, and you are not Catholic, and my family is very, very devout. My mother would be so uncomfortable if I was to marry someone who was not a Catholic." Bill held her close. "Glow, I know we can work on anything. We can work out any problems if we're together." She gently pushed him away. "But that is not the biggest problem. It is Hanggang Pier." "Hong Kong what?" "No, you see the ship way at the end of the pier?" "Yes." "It is said that when an American soldier has a Filipino girlfriend or fiance or even wife, when he gets orders to leave the Philippines and go to America or another country, when the boat pulls away, the girl is left standing on the pier all alone. Do you know, my mother has a friend whose daughter was left Hanggang Pier with a baby." "Glow, Glow, you know I would never leave you. I love you." "Oh, I know. But my mother believes that no American soldier will keep his promise." Well, they talked and talked, and eventually they decided to be secretly engaged. And she used a safety pin and safety pinned her little engagement ring to her bra to keep it safe, only taking it out at night to look at it and hold it to her heart. One day she was lying down after Mass on the little bed in the bedroom that she shared with her sister Evs, and she heard heavy footsteps outside. She knelt on the bed and looked under the curtain. Oh, it's Bill! What is he doing here? Jesus Maria Sepp! She was calling on the big guns, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, to help her. Jesus Maria Sepp! Then she heard the door open, and her mother. Hello? May I help you? Mrs. Santiago, good afternoon. I am Second Lieutenant William Clement, but please call me Bill. Lieutenant, may I help you? Well, I was hoping I might come in and talk with you. Please, come and sit. She pointed to a rattan chair, and she took a seat at the rattan couch that was facing the chair. Glory, get some iced tea for our guest, and then come sit with me. Gloria brought the tea. Mrs. Santiago's back was erect and her hands were laced in her lap. Now, Lieutenant. Oh, please, call me Bill. Lieutenant, is my Glory in any trouble? Oh, no, ma'am. I just wanted to come and meet you. I've heard so much about your family. My family? And she looked at Gloria, who was not giving her a look back. Yes, I've heard so much about your family from Glo. Glo? Yes, and I wanted to tell you that I love her, and she loves me. She loves you. She loves you. Oh, I see. Yes, and Mrs. Santiago, I would like to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage. I would like to marry her. Oh, I see. Well, Lieutenant, that will not be possible. I'm so sorry, but thank you for coming. Mama, please talk to him. Mama, I love him. Bill stood up and he took his hat, and out of it he drew a blue airmail envelope and he passed it to Mrs. Santiago. And she took it. Lieutenant, I understand English, but I do not read it. Please read it to me. Oh, yes, of course. My dearest Mrs. Santiago, I am Edith Clement, Bill's mother. My husband, also named William, lives in our own modest home in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The letters we receive from our son each month are full of descriptions of your beautiful country and your beautiful daughter. They show us his deep love for her and his hopes for a future together. He told us he wants to ask your blessing to marry your youngest daughter, Gloria. I imagine you have many questions and concerns about such a marriage. I want you to know that my husband and I will love her like she is our own daughter. They will always have a home with us. We welcome her with open arms. My son is a very good and kind man. I know he will always honor his wife and provide and protect his children. He loves Gloria very much. I hope we will be able to meet her when they come to the United States. With all our love and with deep respect, Edith and Bill Clement. Without a word, Mrs. Santiago reached for the letter, and she went back to her bedroom and closed the door. Days passed. Weeks dragged on, not a word from Mrs. Santiago about Bill's marriage proposal. But eventually, she relented. But she insisted that they go to the 6 8-week training with her Catholic priest, and Bill had to sign a contract that he would raise any and all children in the Catholic Church. Well, finally, on April 29th, 1947, Bill and Glo were married, and Gloria became a war bride. Now, soon after that, Bill got orders to go to Japan. Can you imagine? Mrs. Santiago had to reach into her faith, deep courage, and what love she must have had to let her youngest daughter, still a teenager, marry an American soldier who was not even Catholic and go to the land of their enemies. Well, they did get on that big ship, and they played with such joy. My mother said that the first year, their newlywed year in Japan, was one of the most idyllic in their entire 42-year marriage. They lived on the Nagaro River, and cormorants migrated there every spring. The Japanese neighbor women and the Negro officers' wives befriended Glo, and they taught her how to cook and to play bridge. Bill and Gloria traveled the whole world together. They had 2 boys and 2 girls. I'm the eldest. And they lived happily ever after. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor, for sharing your mother's story with us. What a precious way to honor her and your family's history. I want to thank all of our storytellers, Alton, Janet, and Eleanor, for sharing these stories with us today in celebration of AAPI Heritage Month. Thank you to Eleanor for bringing the storytellers together and shaping the program into what it was today. And special thank you to Allison Wyckoff for helping plan this program and run tech today. Thanks, Allison. And there's some great comments in the chat. Just checking if there's any questions. I want to thank everyone who joined us here today. We hope you come and visit the Asian Art Museum soon. And I'm going to put a list of art activities and ways to celebrate the AAPI Heritage Month at home in the chat just now. We are so glad you joined us and you listened to all of these wonderful stories. Really felt a lot of emotions today, so thank you to the 3 of you who shared with us. Thank you, everyone. Bye.